Hi everybody, and welcome back to You Are Supreme Toys. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Marvel Selects Apocalypse. Now, this guy is pretty outstanding looking. I don't always buy Marvel Selects figures. I'm particularly fond of Marvel Selects larger scaled figures because the price point is usually the same as their normal size figures, but you feel like you get a lot more for your dollar. So Apocalypse here was $30 from Big Bad Toy Store. This is the going rate now for Marvel Selects. There was a time when they were $20 and you got a lot of action figure for that $20. Now Marvel Selects is able to sell these high quality collectibles at a more reasonable price point. I believe because they do not have to pay the same royalties as, say, Hasbro would. So if you've ever wondered why you can get a large, giant Marvel Selects figure for the same price just about now, Marvel Legends is about $25 for a standard figure. This is what I appreciate about these collector quality figures, is they oftentimes will credit the actual designers and sculpting team. Here we've got it designed by Eamon O'Donoghue, I hope I've pronounced your name right, and sculpted by Gentle Giant Ltd. So here we got Apocalypse. He looks fantastic in the package. This is your standard Marvel Selects packaging that they've used for, gosh, I want to say over 10 years now, 15 years probably. I don't remember when Marvel Select started making action figures, but it's going on 20 years, I know that. So we got the Apocalypse figure here on the side of the package, and then the backer card shows him. He has a small bio here on the back. Born in the small Egyptian settlement of Aqaba almost 5,000 years ago, the being originally dubbed En Sabah Nur was the world's first known mutant. Nur struggled through countless ordeals, all the while formulating an ideology akin to survival of the fittest. Using advanced alien celestial technology, as well as his almighty mutant powers, Nur became the mighty conqueror, Apocalypse, influencing history throughout the ages and re-emerging in the modern era to wreak havoc alongside his chosen harbingers, the Horsemen. Okay. Now, Apocalypse has been around since the late 80s, I want to say. Maybe earlier, I can't recall. But he was a big X-Men villain. He was in X-Factor comics. He was pretty much that mutant baddie. And he was pretty prevalent all the way up through the late 90s as a regular villain. One of my favorite comic arcs when I was growing up was the Age of Apocalypse. And those designs and redesigns of those characters was amazing. The story was okay, but, you know, it was fun. This design is based more on his early appearances. The sculpt looks amazing. I have no complaints about the sculpt. The paint apps look pretty good. I am not a fan of the Marvel Selects packaging. When it comes to the larger characters, for instance, Thing and Abomination, and some of the earlier giant Hulk figures, these bubbles always seem to detach from the card back in some fashion on those bigger figures. Juggernaut, it was really notorious for that because of the weight of the actual figures. Those figures were heavy, and it would just, you know, vibrate in shipping and pull the bubble off the card. So if you wanted a nice mint on card figure, the larger characters were nigh impossible to get without some form of damage. In fact, the weight of the figures on some of them would tear the little peg hook at the top. But En Sabah Nur here, he is a taller figure, but he is not a Abomination heavy figure. The Abomination figure from Marvel Selects is amazing still. It's weak in the articulation department, but the sculpt is fantastic. I'm not a fan of these card backs because the card wraps around the side here and then folds up to the edge. And this piece is glued into place onto the bubble. So let's just say you wanted to keep your card back intact as possible. It's just not going to happen, because once you remove the card, the bubble from the card, if you cut it off or something, it's going to be stuck to this piece, which you're going to be trying to pry off, and it's going to tear the paper off the card back, or leave glue residue, and you're going to wind up bending this corner piece. When I do buy Marvel Selects, there's almost never an instance where this card back or the corner here isn't damaged or creased or bent or torn in some way. So I've just got to a point where with most of my collectibles now, I just throw all the packaging away. I don't keep the card backs or anything. I want the figure inside. So I was excited when they announced Apocalypse. I've been waiting for an Apocalypse figure for a long time from Selects, and I'm just surprised it took them so long to get to an Apocalypse. I thought for sure when they did one, it would be the Age of Apocalypse version of Apocalypse, which I would buy. I would buy a Selects AOA Apocalypse. So that's something to look forward to in the future, hopefully. But I'm certainly ecstatic and happy to have this original 80s, 90s version of Apocalypse. I had the original Toy Biz Apocalypse figure growing up, as well as the 10-inch version, which was fantastic for that toy line, because you could actually use that 10-inch Apocalypse figure playing with your normal scaled Toy Biz figures, because En Sabah Nur here has the ability to grow in stature. Let's go ahead and rip En Sabah Nur out of the box here and see how he turns out. So first off, we have this nice, beautifully sculpted claw hand. It does not move in and out, but it looks amazing. It has this little port on the bottom, so his hose from his body can attach to it. And the paint is just amazing. I love the blue metallic paint. It just looks good. I think it's a pretty good standard claw attachment. I like that it's not just a flat blue. They put a lot of silver in there and made it look nice and shiny. Also, he has this drill arm. Gotta have a drill arm for this guy. Love that they included it. I do see one thing I don't like. These tiny little hooks on the side. I can see those breaking off with time. If you're messing with it or accidentally posing it, you might accidentally flick one of these things and they break. It has two shades of blue. It's got the more light blue here on these fins, and then the darker metallic blue on the ring. Flat tip, so you're not going to hurt yourself. Looks good. And he comes with a mace hand, which I love, the spiked mace hand. It does have a hinge, and then he has two fists. He has two open hands attached to him in the box. First off, the paint on this guy looks great. I can't see really any complaints. They have a nice little wash here in the boots on that silver, on the back and the front, as well as the hands and the inner thighs. He just looks really good. Got that head sculpt right here. This head sculpt definitely feels more realistic in tone. I don't know if it's designed after a particular version or art, but he has these little yellow beady eyes. Love that they painted their little yellow pupils in there.
He is really upset. I am Apocalypse and I am angry all the time.
I can't get over, to me, the voice of Apocalypse will always be the one from the 90s X-Men animated series. He has these hoses attached to him on his back. They are not as pliable as I hoped they would be. They are not made of a bendable material. So they are just a straight solid hose. At least it feels that way. I don't see any indication that they would be bendable. But this brings me back to the issue of the first release of Apocalypse in the Toy Biz line, there were two versions. There was the comic version, which came out with within the first couple of waves of the vintage toy line, and he was more slender, and his growing gimmick was his legs and arms would pull out a little bit. But he had these rubber hoses that attached from his back to his arms, and those hoses were notorious for slowly breaking over time. So most of the used versions of that Apocalypse figure has missing or broken hoses, and I can see this following suit, as this should have been somewhat softer. It's a pretty rigid plastic, and unless you sort of hide it behind his back somehow and displaying it, which you could do like that, you're gonna want to attach these to his arm. And I can just imagine trying to do that. They attach well, but when you go to pull the arm up, it's gonna put stress on this plastic. So I just imagine over time it's gonna break. Now, what you could do is find the pose you want him to be in, and maybe boil these hoses so that you can get some more mobility out of them, get him to the pose you want, and then let them cool, and they'll be okay. But I just don't like that. That's a big disappointment. I wish this would have been a somewhat softer plastic or a bendable material, even though I'm not a fan of bendable anything, because they tend to break over time too. That would have been a lot better than this hard plastic. Now, as far as head articulation, you're not going to get a lot, but he can move pretty good. But that collar, of course, is going to get in the way. Shoulders. He's somewhat gummy in the shoulders. There's a lot of wonkiness there. Can't really see what's going on the inside, but it looks like just a bar going into the arm. And just say be careful with that. I don't trust it. It's too wobbly. But he's got his bicep swivel. He's got the swivel. He's got an unnecessary swivel here. He has a swivel at the elbow, as well as a swivel at this armband. So he's got like a double swivel there, which kind of is weird. And of course he has the his bicep, which is stuck pretty good. I would probably say use some hot water with this guy. I've never had a Marvel Selects figure break, but it's the first time for everything. Seems pretty sturdy. Doesn't seem like he's going to get quite a 90-degree. Oh, yeah, that is tight. And this hand is so loose that it makes it difficult. That just came right off. So that's how you're going to swap out his arms. It's not on there very well. It clips on though. There we go. So there's a lot of wonkiness in the arm I don't like. He's got a hand swivel as well as a hinge at the hand. You can swap out the hand or the whole arm depending on, if you're going to swap out the arms. And this should be the same on the other side. That arm is a lot looser. Feels a lot better. Some flashing stuck in there. Ooh, man, those elbows are scary. I don't like how tight those are. But you can get them. Ooh, see? You should be able to do that no matter what and it not break. That's what I'm talking about. Even though it's tight, I'm going at it and it's not breaking on me. Alright, he has a limited torso swivel. I gotta be honest with you, I don't really see the purpose in it. It doesn't look terrible, but I just feel like if you're not going to be able to get a significant range of motion out of it, I don't see no point in it. But you get a little bit. Enough, I guess. I can't tell if there is a waist swivel or not. Let's see. If there is, you're not going to be able to really utilize it. I don't think there is, unless it's right here below the A. Yep, there is. Alright, right there below his belt buckle. He's got a waist swivel, but you gotta like grab it and turn it. Really difficult. And of course he's got his hips, which go in and up and back a little bit. They're gonna hit there, so it's not gonna go back very far. See how this thigh cut is very tight. So honestly, I don't really see any reason trying to use that. And of course he has a swivel at his knee, as well as the hinge, which is also very tight. And he should have a twist. Does he have a twist here? The boot. You got a boot twist, bro? I don't know. If he's got a boot twist, it ain't moving. So that might be firmly glued in place. But he does have the ankle pivot and twist, which looks really good. I love that rocker ankle. Rocker ankle is probably the best thing that works on here, but I don't know how well it's going to work. We'll see. Will it hold his weight? That's the bigger question. I like that in regards to a lot of Marvel Selects, he can actually get down and pose a little bit. Leg articulation is not the strong suit of a lot of Selects figures, especially some of the bigger guys, but he's got pretty decent leg articulation. Bad articulation is one of the reasons I skip on a lot of Marvel Selects figures, because the sculpts look great, but the articulation is typically limited. I think they've slowly integrated better articulation into their figures over the years, and Apocalypse is no exception here. He articulates pretty decently for his scale. Let's see, we're gonna just see if we can plug these hoses in. They're not too bad. Alright, so as long as it's not too far away, you can pose his arms pretty decently with the hoses attached. So I might be winding up just doing that. But if you're going to want him having his arms high up in the air, that's going to be an issue. Pop off his arm here. Let's give him his claw. Let's see how this fits in. Fits on pretty good. No problems attaching that. He even had a claw hand on the vintage figures. Let's see if I can swap out both hands. Give him his drill on his other arm. The drill is a little bit tighter, but you can get it in there. That is a tight fit. And of course the claw and the drill both have the peg holes in certain spots for the hoses. And well, they stretch decently. I don't know, I'm not sure about getting it all the way up there. Yeah, that doesn't see how you're just gonna pull back. It just doesn't look good. But you could probably hide it somehow. Yeah, those hoses are probably the worst part about this figure so far. I love these alternate arms though. They're amazing. Let's see. We want to pop out his regular hands. They come out pretty well. And you can either put on a fist, which also go in pretty decently. Just reattach it. Or put in his mace, which also looks pretty darn great. I gotta say, he looks pretty good. I love the options. That's the main thing. I love that the mace is the same color as his actual regular hands. There are like 4, 5 different shades of blue on this guy. You've got a metallic blue, you've got a light metallic blue, you got this light flat blue, this matte blue, this dark gray blue. So he's got a lot of blue going on. He's blue, da-ba-dee, da-bu-die. Apocalypse. And you wonder if he lives in a blue house. For the price point, I think he looks wonderful. Again, I don't like the hoses. This is something I feel like should have been addressed 30 years later. Like, it shouldn't be an issue. I don't know what they were thinking. If they would have just had made them where you could turn them right here, if this could just pivot, that would make so much difference in posability options. But as it is, you're just going to have these hoses here. If you couldn't move them, at least be able to detach them, but you can't. They're glued into place. That's the biggest negative to this guy and the most disappointing thing. All the extra hands and arms are great. The design is great. The sculpt is great. The paint apps are great. This guy could have been a good solid 10, in my opinion, for the price point, for the scale, for the sculpt. But those hoses and some of the gumminess of the upper arms kind of negates that. For scale, he is 9 inches tall. So he is almost on par with the vintage 10-inch figure. Not as bulky as that animated counterpart, but definitely cool. I'm thrilled to add this guy to my shelf. Anyway, this has been an unboxing and review of Diamond Select Toys Marvel Selects Apocalypse figure. And I am UR Supreme Toys. Thank you for watching.